Michael, did you know that now 5 MLS teams are valued at $1 billion or more?
Oh boy, five. That is four more than last year. Five teams: Inter Miami, LAFC, LA Galaxy, Atlanta United, and New York City Football Club, all valued at $1 billion or more ahead of the 2026 MLS season. Crazy.
Crazy. And we're talking about market analysis, sponsorship revenue, and the potential that investors and, of course, bankers are seeing in these teams' potential to be even bigger franchises over the course of next few years, given after 2026 World Cup, football, soccer will be even more important in this country.
Exactly. And while the barrier to entry comes at a steep price, San Diego FC ownership paid $500 million expansion fee to join MLS. With these skyrocketing valuations, it's a risk worth taking, right? San Diego, they finished runner up in the Western Conference. They had an unbelievable first season in MLS. They're valued at $795 million. That's the 10th most valuable team in Major League Soccer. Not bad after being in the league for just one season. So with MLS on the verge of introducing its 3.0 era, and as you said, the excitement swelling in anticipation of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, it's no surprise MLS has plenty of suitors for potential expansion franchises. We break this down and more on this week's episode of Finance of Football. I'm veteran sports journalist Michael Array.
And I'm the athletics women's soccer writer, Asli. Welcome to Finance of Football. According to Sportico, ahead of the 2026 season, the average MLS club is valued at $767 million, up 6% year over year and up 39% since Sportico's first MLS valuations in 2021. That is an incredible financial success. This is just the tip of the iceberg. This is not going to end. I think we're at the hockey stick growth projection of this league. Soccer is more popular in the United States. The World Cup is coming, like we said before. But also, these teams have something in common. You mentioned San Diego. San Diego was a USL team already with a huge following. And same applies to a few other markets. Clearly, New York is one of them. Miami is another example, but Nashville, Columbus. There are soccer fans in this country that were perhaps following their team when they were in a smaller league, maybe with less prominent facilities or naturally experienced. Now they have it all. They have a league that compares itself with the NFL, right? The big NFL, which is everybody's North Star, I would say, when they're building a league in the United States. Everybody looks up to NFL. Do you think that's MLS's trajectory?
I couldn't agree with you more. Just to clarify, San Diego Loyal of the USL, they were completely disbanded when San Diego FC came in. They didn't, come up from the USL into MLS. Those completely different ownerships, obviously club branding, all that stuff. But like you said, it's a testament to the fan base for soccer in San Diego, right? And they lost their NFL team. Sure, they have the Padres, but the Chargers moved up, to LA. So there is this demand in markets like San Diego and some of the other ones we're going to talk about later in this episode for professional soccer, that whether they have a USL team or not, there is still a growth there and the excitement for ownership to say, hey, we should have a top level men's professional soccer team in this certain market, and here's why. And obviously MLS, they've learned their lessons, over the last 30 years, where it used to be, okay, great, you're going to bring in a team. Well, do you have a stadium? No, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You can come in. So they've learned kind of that the hard way. But with recent clubs, Charlotte FC obviously plays in Bank of America Stadium where the Panthers play. St. Louis built their stadium before they started playing.
And it's a beautiful stadium.
Exactly. Love the stadium in St. Louis, but the league after NYCFC, and it's taken over a decade to have a stadium. Inter Miami, it was the same thing. We'll let you guys start playing, but you don't really have a full-time home. The league kind of made it a requirement now for these teams. If you want to come in, you need to have some sort of facility where you guys can play already.
I think ownership groups or the leagues are looking at it as like, is it worth building this stadium here. But with a growing league with 30 teams already in it, a very busy schedule, and more so when we switch to the fall to spring schedule for MLS, I think the need to have proper stadiums is going to be even, bigger. And over the course of summer, these stadiums will generate revenue, which will definitely impact the valuation of each soccer team, because then that means their revenue will go up significantly every year. That they don't not only have to share the stadium with another sports team, they will generate more revenue, stadium rights to sponsorship to, I don't know, concessions. It's still a great money-making opportunity for these teams. So I'm not, surprised valuations are going up, up, up in such a short period of time.
Yeah, exactly. And while a lot of these are soccer specific stadiums, right? They're not NFL stadiums converted for soccer. They're trying to really, like you said, monetize this infrastructure where it's, hey, we can have nearby hotels and restaurants and entertainment districts. We can have other teams come and play. We can have concerts, right? NYCFC, what's it called? Etihad Park or something like that. Like they're trying to, the CEO told me a few years ago, he goes, we would love to have an NWSL team call our stadium home because there's just more opportunities to bring people to the stadium. Like you said, it's for sponsors, it's all of that. So I think the recipe for success is there in MLS. We've seen it. I hate to even call it lower levels, but we've seen it in the USL with their mixed use facilities and these districts that they are building in all of these other markets all around the country. But I think the biggest question for MLS is, where do you cap the expansion, right? The demand is there. Everyone's excited about soccer. Everybody who has money wants to get a piece of this pie. So MLS is at 30 teams as we begin the 2026 season, the last of the MLS 2.0 era. Do they go up to 32 like the NFL? Like you said, that North Star, do they go up to 32 teams? NHL also has 32, or do they sit at 30 like Major League Baseball and the National Basketball Association and just keep it at 30? Obviously, promotion relegation is still up in the air. USL has their new USL Premier as their Division One league, and they're going to introduce Pro Rel in 2027. MLS will keep a key eye on it, but like, do they add more teams between now and then? Do they look to expand beyond 30 teams? And maybe who are some other front runners who could potentially, be a new MLS franchise after the World Cup?
Well, let's take a look at a few low hanging fruits, let's say, right? If they were to go to 32, where would they look? In 2019, MLS announced Sacramento Republic would be the league's 29th team, which was originally slated for them to play in 2022. However, in February of 2021, the expansion to MLS was put on indefinite hiatus after Ron Burkle, the billionaire investor, the primary investor of the proposed team, decided to look elsewhere. And where did he look? He looked for an NWSL expansion team in San Diego Wave FC in 2021, which, was an immediate success, by the way. It was a very successful investment and on the pitch. And in March 2024, Burkle sold the team to Levi and Leichman Family Fund for a record-breaking $120 million. At the time, the highest price paid for an NWSL, team. And it was a massive increase from approximately $2 million he paid for the expansion fee.
The reason Ron Burkle pulled out of the Sacramento Republic deal is over the cost of the stadium, right? Let's be honest. The pandemic hit, costs skyrocketed. There were the cargo ships, off the coast of California and around the country, supply chain. Just there were so many issues, and in order for Sacramento Republic to make the move from USL to MLS, they needed a new stadium. Whereas for San Diego Wave, where he got in, they're playing in Snapdragon Stadium, right? That's the San Diego State University School Stadium. San Diego FC play there. San Diego Wave play there. So your cost is substantially less if you're Ron Burkle to get involved with the Wave for $2 million instead of having to foot the bill for a new stadium for Sacramento Republic. So it makes a ton of sense why he
probably
did
the
it.
franchise fee. They were also going to
Yeah.
pay a franchise fee on top of it, which was not going to be $2 million. So it's not surprising that he wanted to put his dollars for a much easier, I think, investment and exit, I would say, in such a short period of time. The turnaround was pretty quick in 3 years. However, I don't think Sacramento Republic has given up fully to join the MLS, right? What do you think?
No, they have not. I love the tenacity by the club and by ownership. So they just broke ground on a new stadium in August, set to open in 2027. This is going to hold 12,000, but there's the potential to expand to 20,000. And as we discussed, this is something that MLS requires its ownership and teams to have. And yes, it's an added cost for them, but it's going to pay major dividends right down the line. It's a long-term investment. So whether or not Sacramento can finally lure MLS and say, "Hey, listen, guys, we belong in this league. We have the stadium, we have the fans, we have the branding, we have all those things," is still TBD. San Diego paid $500 million for an expansion fee. I imagine Sacramento or any other team that comes into the league is going to be what, 600, if not more? Could it be
Mm-hmm.
700,
Totally.
750? Like we're close to $1 billion here just for the rights to have a team, let alone the operating costs and the facility and building all those things. So another option for Sacramento is they could be setting themselves up to join that USL Premier, their Division One league that starts in 2027. So maybe that's
Yeah.
kind of the band-aid
Right after
for
World
the
Cup.
market. Yeah, for the league. You join that in 2027, you kind of prove some success there. And then should you make the jump to MLS?
The latest city that showed interest in bringing a soccer club or two is Mesa, Arizona. Mesa City Council approved the formation of the Palo District in an attempt to attract both an MLS and NWSL team. Are you surprised about that, Michael?
Honestly, I am a little bit because you have Phoenix Rising of the USL Championship right there, and I know there were some issues about where do they play and their training facility, and that seems to be a trend, especially in Arizona, because the Coyotes, the NHL team, they had issues where they would play, and they ended up selling the rights to that franchise, and it got relocated to Utah. So the fact that Mesa City Council and the mayor Mark Freeman are very bullish on refurbishing this area into this, entertainment district and this mixed use facility to lure in not one professional soccer team, but two. I'm a little surprised here. Like what happens to Phoenix Rising at that point? Or is it just kind of a, hey, that's your problem. We have professional soccer here in Mesa. But again, just great to see other communities seeing the value in professional soccer and going about it the right way to try to set up the infrastructure and facilities in order to accommodate those teams.
I think another place where I am still surprised that there isn't an MLS team is Las Vegas, right? I remember doing a story about the USL team and potential of soccer fans in that area and how they can go about it. So much attention around the owner, who is a famous baseball player, Jose Bautista. I asked him a question about like, would you ever think about taking this team to MLS, which he didn't answer. But I think in 2021, there was a Las Vegas conversation around MLS, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you were a betting man in 2021, you'd go all in on Las Vegas being that next location for an MLS expansion team with billionaire Wes Edens, the one writing the checks. Don Garber at his annual State of the League address said, quote, Vegas is the front runner, and I'm very, very focused on that. We're looking at building a stadium right off the strip, end quote. So now here we are in 2026, and Vegas hasn't really been in the conversation since. It's kind of surprising because following the repeal of PAPSPA, the sports betting, and everyone's gone all in on
Uh-huh.
sports betting. Vegas, isn't Sin City anymore. It's now become this go-to destination for professional
For
sports.
sports.
You know, we have the Raiders have relocated there from the NFL. We have the Golden Knights, the new hockey expansion team, has been there, and we have the impending relocation of the Oakland Athletics to Las Vegas. So you have a lot of sports teams seeing Vegas as this
Formula One. It is the Formula One's latest destination as
the
well. Let's not
Formula
forget
One
that.
Grand Prix as well too. They've been doing that, I think, 3 or 4 years. So it's Vegas has become this huge pro sports hub, but MLS it's still in question up there. So I don't know, why that kind of tapered off over the last recent years, or maybe you have some insight.
It's interesting when you mention NHL Golden Knights. Golden Knights billionaire owner Bill Foley
They're all billionaires, aren't they, by the way?
I know
All the
exactly.
owners,
MLS,
billionaire owner,
everybody's a
billionaire owner.
billionaire. Exactly. Um, Bill Foley opted to invest in soccer, however, not in Las Vegas and not in MLS. He went across the pond and bought AFC Bournemouth. And he said when he realized the potential, the fandom, the emotion and passion Europeans have for the sport really mesmerized him. And he said that he wanted to be an owner of a soccer team, but instead of doing it in the US, he bought the AFC Bournemouth. And not only he bought the team, he also brought US men's national team captain and midfielder star player Tyler Adams to come and play for his league, creating a liaison between US and his team in England so that there will be a potential to grow its audience on this part of the world, right? It's such a smart way of investing actually in a European soccer team on his behalf. I think it was really fun. I mean, he's super passionate about it and brings his team often to US off season for them to play friendly games to grow its audience here in the country.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, Michael B. Jordan is a minority investor in Bournemouth as well too. So again, just making that kind of connection between English soccer and the U.S. And the celebrity that we've seen, and we discussed in last episode about why European soccer and specifically in England is such a great investment opportunity, or why it's so appealing for athletes and celebrities. Welcome back to Finance of Football. This week's episode, we're discussing potential MLS expansion and whether or not the league, which is currently at 30 teams, goes up to 32 to emulate the NFL. And, who would potentially be those expansion teams to join? We've discussed, Sacramento, Mesa, Arizona, Las Vegas, but there was another city, Indianapolis, that made a huge push to potentially get an expansion team. I remember being in Columbus for MLS All-Star a couple years ago, and Indy Mayor Joe Hogsett was on the campaign trail. Him and his staff were out there when they're really pushing to bring, an MLS franchise to Indy. Indy, like a lot of other cities we mentioned with Vegas and Sacramento, they have USL teams. So whether or not this would be taking Indy 11, vaulting them up to MLS, or creating something entirely new. But, they've enlisted industry veteran Tom Glick, who served formerly as president at NYCFC. He's been at City Football Group. He's been all around the industry. And, their biggest thing too, like we discussed with some other cities, is infrastructure. It's a stadium. So in 2014, the mayor, hey, we're gonna submit a bid. We're gonna do special taxing. But guess what? The bid was never submitted. The board decided to go through and do pre-construction planning and all this kind of stuff like that. And now here we are at the start of 2026, and politicians now in Indianapolis are kind of saying, "Hey, guess what? It's not going to happen." So Senate President pro tempore Roderick Bray said, "Quote, doesn't look like there's much of a chance there. I think they're having a hard time finding the numbers that work." End quote. So like we've discussed in Sacramento, I know they just broke ground on a new stadium. Indianapolis really struggling to figure out the balance of when, where, and how much money a new potential MLS
Exactly.
stadium would be for them. So, there's 4 strong contenders for potential MLS expansion. Whether or not the league is open to this is still TBD. I feel every time Don Garber speaks, sometimes he says, "Hey, we're happy at 30 teams. Hey, we're happy at whatever." And it kind of depends. But if someone's willing to cut you a check for almost $1 billion just for the rights to bring a team to your league, how can you say no to that?
Welcome back to Finance of Football. And now it's time for World Cup date. Oh my God, I can't stop saying World Cup date. I love it so much. This week's World Cup date is about New York's young and very media-centric mayor, Zohran Mamdani. And he is thinking or proposing to pilot his free bus program during World Cup. What do you think about that?
Yeah, listen, I love it. It was one of the kind of I don't want to say marquee platforms that, he ran on in his mayoral campaign, but it was something that he said, like, New York needs to be more affordable because, yes, there are a lot of people, in the high end, those billionaires, all those team owners, that they have their penthouses, but then there's schlubs like me who take the subway, take the bus, and, you know, it's hard for a lot of people, especially if you have to go into work every day and necessarily can't afford it. So the fact that, the mayor is willing to try to make this World Cup more affordable. I know he's kind of taken on Airbnb with people trying to jack up prices to make a lot of money with the tournament coming. I think, piloting this bus program is going to be great because, the majority of New Yorkers rely on public transportation, and especially knowing there's 8 matches here, including the final. Like, we need to have that infrastructure set up, and it needs to be as easy as possible for people, whether you're a billionaire or, you're hustling hard every day to get to work, to take advantage of the opportunity. So obviously interested to see what happens with it, especially this summer with the World Cup.
2014 World Cup, they did the same thing. Match days, public transportation was free. I thought one of the reasons for that wasn't only about helping the residents of Rio travel for free. Don't forget foreigners, when they're visiting a new country, they don't really know how to buy the ticket, how it's going to work out. So if they are making long lines to get into the bus and whatever, it will impact the residents of the city one way or another. Like, we would be late to work if 100,000 people are trying to go from point A to B. And I say 100 because imagine there are going to be 70,000 people at least going to the stadium from New York, plus the fan fests.
Yep.
Plus a lot of people who are just going to be hanging out like the fans. So if they just jump on a bus and go inside, then they're trying to pay with their card and the card doesn't work and da. It will be a massive shit show. And I thank you, Mayor, for anticipating the potential hazard of having millions of people, I would say, quote unquote, very efficient public transportation system, making it little simpler for everyone involved during those weeks. I think it's a great idea. Would that really give him the data he's looking for around whether or not free buses are actually a good thing for the city? I doubt that, because it's going to be very hard to collect that data, because it's the residents who would be the data point. And when a lot of foreigners are in the mix of data collecting, will probably not give accurate information to those who are looking for it. But I definitely think it will make our lives easier if we're not waiting in line to get in the subway because 10 people trying to use the same card to get into the subway or to the bus or whatever they're going to try to use to get to stadiums or to watch soccer this summer.
Yeah, I think it's foresight from a soccer fan, of which he is. I'm a Manchester United fan. He's an Arsenal fan. So we do kind of butt heads there a little bit. But the fact that he does understand the excitement and just the logistics that go into these types of tournaments. And he knows that New York City is going to be the place to be. Regardless of where the matches are being played, New York City is going to be the place to be for the 2026 World Cup. Does it lead to potentially free buses or some sort of program for residents after the World Cup? Like we said, we don't know. Are you getting that right segment and the right data? But at least you're trialing it to see how it works logistically and whether or not it's good, bad, or ugly, which is to be determined.
If it's not free, I'm telling you, it's going to be ugly. I'm going to see somebody, banging a tourist's head against a subway station wall for not going through the turnstiles fast enough.
Finance of Football comes to you from the Frequency Machine Podcast Network. Hit us up on Instagram and YouTube at Finance of Football Pod for more football business and our enlightened opinions. Or search Finance of Football on LinkedIn and Facebook. This episode was produced by co-hosts Michael Array and Asli Pellet. It was edited by Ryan Hammond. Mixing and mastering by Julian Kwasniewski. Our theme music is by Hatamitsunami. Our show is executive produced by Ryan, alongside Stacy Book and Avi Glajansky for Frequency Machine. Find more about Finance of Football at frequencymachine.com. Follow us on YouTube at Finance of Football and listen anywhere you get podcasts. Please like and subscribe. Help us reach more people. We love you for it.